Hello and welcome to this edition of Eat Right with Rouses. I'm your host, Keith Weissite. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are always glad to be joined by our favorite dietitian, registered dietitian with Eat Right with Rouses, April Sins. Hi, April. How are you?
Hi, Keith. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, it's so exciting for this time of year. The fall brings lots of things, but we have a national something month every month, it seems. Tell us about what we can expect in October.
Absolutely. So it's actually National Pork Month this month. So I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about some options that many people might have some misconceptions about. So a lot of people ask me, April, is pork a good choice? And so that's why I wanted to bring this to you to talk about some great choices in the pork section. So it depends on the cut and if it's a fresh cut and if it's processed. Items like bacon, sausage, and ham, they tend to be higher in sodium and fat content. So whenever we have those, we can have those like in smaller amounts or maybe on occasion. But I'll tell you about one cut that is actually approved by the American Heart Association is your pork tenderloin. Okay, so you could find these at Rouse's. They come with most of the time with two loins inside of the packaging. The price point of pork tenderloin is great, and it comes with a lot of meat. So you really get a lot for your dollar whenever you buy pork tenderloin. Not only that, but 3 ounces of pork tenderloin is about 22 grams of protein. So those of y'all that are looking for protein, or maybe your teenagers are talking about their muscles and they want some more protein, how about some pork tenderloin? Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of different cooking methods because sometimes people say, you know, whenever I cook pork, it tends to get dry. But there are some important cooking techniques to keep in mind when it comes to cooking pork. So one thing is you can do a brine, okay? So, and it doesn't have to be, most people when they think of a brine, they think of like really, really salty. This is going to be salt, it's going to be sugar, and it's going to be water. It's going to be soaked. We're going to soak the meat in it overnight, okay? So let's go ahead and make one together. I have a tablespoon of salt, a tablespoon of sugar, and I have a cup of water, cold water, okay? So what we're gonna do is I actually took my pork tenderloin, I cut it into about a half inch slices. And this is what I love to do with the pork tenderloin because it actually almost gets almost like a little mini steak, right? Okay, so I'm gonna put that in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to seal it up. You want to make sure it's nice and well sealed, that it's not going to drip or spread on anything else in the refrigerator. Refrigerate it overnight. If you don't have time to do overnight, a few hours in the refrigerator, that will actually do well too. I like to do mine a little longer though. Okay, put that in there. And then the next day, whenever you take it out, all you have to do is just take it out of that water, throw the water off, and then you proceed with your cooking. So it makes it really, really easy. Now, the next thing to remember when you're cooking pork, especially if you're going to be cooking a tenderloin, it doesn't have a lot of fat content. There's only like 3 grams of fat in a 3-ounce portion. So being that it doesn't have a lot of fat content, that the fat is not there to moisturize the meat. So that's where the brine comes in, but it also comes in with your cooking temperature. So having a really great food thermometer available is really going to help you get that cooking down, okay? Now, 145 degrees is the temperature that you want to look for. That's whenever your pork tenderloin is cooked, is when it reaches 145 degrees. Whenever I cook it in my pan, and I have some that's already cooked right here, but sometimes I'll stack them on top of each other to make sure I'm getting a really good reading of my pork tenderloin, and I want to make sure that I'm reaching that 145 degrees. Once it's cooked, let it rest for 3 minutes. But I want to show you this really neat glaze. It's just going to take 2 seconds to put it together. And what you're going to do is you're going to chop up an apple. This is 1 apple. I know it looks like a lot, but it's just 1 apple chop. Wow. I have about a tablespoon of Rouse's olive oil. I have about 3 tablespoons of some brown sugar. You can actually use your sugar alternative if you want to as well. And then I have a little pad of butter, and all you do is just saute this down in a pan for a few minutes until your apples start to brown a little bit. and then it comes out to this really gorgeous glaze right here. And then
Wow.
we're going to throw that on top of these cooked pork tenderloin, and you just have this outstanding dish that the whole family is going to love. And just a side note, my kids love it whenever I cook this pork tenderloin. And it's very simple. It doesn't
Right.
it doesn't take a long time to cook the tenderloin in some olive oil in the pan, and then put your glaze on top, and then you have a dish. I mean, you could pair it with some pasta or some rice or something like that, maybe a vegetable on the side too. And I mean, you really have a really good meal. Probably going to have some leftovers as well,
Yeah,
which
that's
I
all.
like because then I don't have to cook the next night.
That's exactly right. And the
Two
really
in
good,
one.
exactly, the really good idea is when they're medallions like that and you can stack them up. It's a good idea because you want to get a deep temperature. You don't want to just get that
Yeah.
external temperature. And the medallions are thin. I love the idea of stacking that and doing that. It
That's
lets
a
us
great
know.
point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And that's what I do with any meat that's thinner is stack them, because you really can't get a good temperature unless you have the thickness. There's actually a little part on your thermometer that it has to reach up into, because meats, all different types of meats have different cooking temperatures, but the whole cuts of the pork tenderloin is 145.
I love it. 145, great to remember. Wonderful for this month in November. April, thank you so much. Always appreciate your time and your direction.
Thanks so much, Keith. Have a great day.
You as well. All right, that will do it for us here with Eat with Rouses. Don't go anywhere. A lot more local programming here at HTV.